Well, good morning. It's the 28th of January 2024, and we're in the house of God. We're looking at the Word of God. We just pray, Lord, we thank you particularly for this book of Revelation. You have pulled back a curtain and shown us that which is to come in this world, and so much already beginning to appear. And we want to be those who are instructed, who are aware, who are obedient, who are enlightened. And that comes from your holy word, and hearts that are willing to believe and obey. So help us this morning as we look at this word. Amen. Well, I've got a very heavy title, Worshipping the Beast. What about that? Revelation 13, verse 8 and 9. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb, slain from the foundation of the world. If any man have an ear, let him hear. Now, we, as human beings, we have a beautiful divine capacity to worship. It's natural to everybody, actually. And it's a tragic aberration, if that's the right word, to see how many worship anything but God. You know, they worship their careers, their money, their health, their bodies, you know, the amusements, and they feel that desire, that naturally given capacity with anything but God. And here we see that's been through human history, but now we see it coming to its culmination, worshipping the beast, the beast. The whole world, all that dwell upon the earth. How on earth has that happened? You know, when I was very ill with COVID. Actually, can't believe 2 years ago. I think I was in the roof of my house on a make-up bed, and I didn't eat for about 8 days, which was a big mistake apparently. And I'm very interested in history, particularly Roman history, and I went on YouTube and got a virtual trip through part of Rome. I think it was called the Campus Martius, and they took us right up to the huge mausoleum of Augustus, and there was some very interesting music that was playing, and I began to have a real sense of the glory of that fallen angel, the glory. And then you get Augustus's golden statue at the top of this incredible, great big, much bigger than this room, this mausoleum. I can see how people will worship. They will worship. And how has it happened? Well, for one thing, the devil's got some very good material to work with. Humanity, as it really is. You go to John 3, and on page 1051, and Old Bible 1487, New Bible. Now, as I say, I'm not giving the numbers for the Revelation references and the Genesis references because they're so easy to find, aren't they? But at the end of this marvellous chapter, which that speaks about being born again. You cannot see the kingdom unless you're born again. And when you're really a Christian, you've been born again, you know the truth of that. Something happened when you were called. God called you. And it was, well, I found it absolutely compelling. I don't know about irresistible, because I'm not sure about that in my case it was, but as a principle, I'm not sure it's irresistible. Men do resist. And they push it away until it dies. That's the problem. But to be called of God, born again, as the only means of seeing God's kingdom, born of the water and the Spirit is the only means of entering God's kingdom. And then he speaks about how Moses lifted up the snake in the wilderness, the brass snake, and that, of course, a picture of Christ made sin, because the thing that was killing them, the venom from those snakes that was killing them, was the image that they had to look at. Brass snake. But then in verse 18, he that believes on him is not condemned, but he that believes not is condemned already because he's not believed in the name of the only Son of God. This is the condemnation, that light is come into the world, and men love darkness rather than light because their deeds were evil. So there's the raw material that the beast can work with. Humanity that doesn't love the light, but loves darkness. So it's just ripe for the coming of God's enemy to be worshipped. Everyone that doeth evil hates the light, neither comes to the light, lest his deeds should be reproved. But he that doeth truth comes to the light, that his deeds may be made manifest, that they are wrought in God. And then there's a susceptibility. I'm talking about the means by which the evil one is going to be worshipped, going to gain that ground, where the whole human race is going to worship him, except those whose names are in the book of life, and I'll come to that in a minute. But there's a susceptibility to believing a delusion that comes right out of that rejecting the truth. And I'm in 2 Thessalonians 2, page 1178, and 1666 in the New Bible. 2 Thessalonians 2, you probably know where I'm going with this, but it's so profound and such a reason, isn't it? I mean, verse 7, the mystery of iniquity does already work. Only he who now will let, that stops it, until he's taken out of the way. Then shall that wicked one be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. Even him whose coming is after the working of Satan with all power and signs and lying wonders, and with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. For this cause God shall send them strong delusion, that they shall believe a lie, and they all might be damned, who believe not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness, because they receive not the love of the truth. The capacity to worship, what I'm made of, what I was made for as well. And it's very simple, friends, right? I personally have had to do this resolutely, right? I reject all the intellectual doubts, all the signs, and especially all the supernatural signs, which the evil one is going to build up to a crescendo. And I think in our time, it's simple. God made me in his image, and I adore him. And I'm going to worship him forever. And that's the capacity that God has put into our hearts. And this thing, when people are going to worship Lucifer, it's such a corruption of that capacity. You know, the whole project is to usurp God, right? To get in the place of God. That's Lucifer's project. And you can see how that's going to happen. I can think about the technology that's going to help that. But to get to usurp that place in human hearts that belongs to God. That's the worst of all of it. That's the worst of all of it. That usurping. That the whole world is going to worship him, except those whose names are in the book of life. Which puts a question to us, doesn't it? Is your name in the book of life? You can know it is for sure, friends. You can know it is for sure. And the adoration for God, it should fill our hearts and our souls. And at the core of our being, there should be an adoration for our Maker. Absolutely. And it's what God wants. John 4, and on page 1052 and 1489, and I'm reading verse 23. The hour has come, and now she's the woman at the well, and she's arguing the ancient row between the Jews and the Samaritans. You say we should go to Jerusalem, but Jacob put his well here. We can worship just as well here. You meet that with people on the streets. Well, I'm a Christian. I don't need to go to church. Really? God commands you to go to church, especially as you see the day approaching. And anyway, why wouldn't you want to run to be where God's people are? Why are you trying to do the minimum and scrape through? You are so misdirecting yourself. You are misdirecting yourself. And it's contrary to what God says. And verse 24, the hour is come and now is when the true worshippers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth. The Father seeketh such to worship him. God wants that. John 4, verse 23, verse 24, God is a spirit. They that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. It's different completely to many systems of worship. The accoutrements, the set times, the set words, the models that are made, all kinds of things. The men with their robes on, special men. We're to worship God in spirit and in truth, from the heart, in reality, based on what is true, based on the one who is the truth, the way, the truth, and the life. All that dwell upon the earth are going to worship him. And it's a corruption of that divine faculty of worship, isn't it? To worship this awful fallen angel. I was talking earlier with Sean. We were talking about how, I think it was with Sean just an hour ago, when you know how we're talking about pride. I think the stupidest sin of the lot, I think. And it's where all of this began with pride. With this wonderful angel, and if you read Ezekiel 20, see what he was like, is like, and is like. Satan is glorious, friends. He is glorious. And that one, I'm going to go there now, but at the beginning of Revelation 18, a holy angel, not a fallen angel, a holy angel, comes to the earth, his presence, the whole earth is lightened by his glory. This angel. You can see how such a being could get a little bit proud of himself. That's where it all began. That's where it all began. And this is where it ends. All that dwell upon the earth will worship him, except those whose names are in the book of life. So which people will not do it? Those whose names are in the book of life. And when you know that your name is in the book of life, can I just say this? You know for sure that you are headed for a place of joy and bliss, the like of which hasn't entered the heart of man. The Bible says that in those terms, and that's going to be forever. Forever. And but what a tough journey it is. What a tough journey it is. And I want to look at that, and I want to try and, maybe the main thing I want to convey today is that don't let the difficulties, the problems, the attacks on your soul and your thinking stop you knowing I'm going to arrive there because my name's in the book of life. I will arrive there. For all the trouble and trials and difficulties and battles and doubts and all those things that come, my name's in the book of life. I'm going to arrive there. But it's a fight. In Revelation 12, you know this verse, and it's so individual. And why would Satan be so against us? But he's got the world, they're going to worship him. But there's a group of people who can see through him and can stop a great deal of what he's doing. Yes. Church. We can overcome him, friends. I'm not saying that lightly, and I'm not saying it's easy. It's an absolute truth. And he knows it. That's why he does everything he can to ruin churches. We're in the book of Revelation now on our Thursday Bible studies. We're doing the 7 churches. 5 of them. What a mess they're in. We're coming to Sardis this Thursday. You have a name that you live at Sardis, you are dead. The Son of God says to that church, you've got a name that you live. Everybody says, oh wow, Sardis. It's a live church. All the young people, the music, that charismatic pastor. Marvellous church. Jesus said, you are dead. And who's killed you? This one who wants to kill every church. I'm getting very serious, friend, but I have to give what God gives me. Then, verse 11 of 12. They overcame him by the blood of the Lamb, the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto the death. And in chapter 15, I love chapter 15 because it's a picture. I don't think we can understand it really. I mean, what is the sea of glass? I mean, it's an image, isn't it, of something spiritual and glorious that we will understand when we get there. But it's thrilling to read it, just to read it. I'm in chapter 15 of Revelation. I saw another sign in heaven, great and marvellous, 7 angels, having the 7 last plagues. In them is filled up the wrath of God. I saw, as it were, a sea of glass mingled with fire. And them that had got no victory over the beast, and over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name, stand on the sea of glass, having the harps of God. And they sing the song of Moses, the servant of God, and the song of the Lamb, saying, Great and marvellous are thy works, Lord God Almighty. Just and true are thy ways, thou King of saints. And can I say this? You don't want to wait till you get there. Let's let that be a theme coming from our hearts, you know. Great and marvellous are thy works, Lord God Almighty. Just and true are thy ways, thou King of saints. Let's get that right into us and express it, friends. Express it. You don't have to wait till I'm on the sea of glass. And I can sing the song of Moses now. I've got it written down in Deuteronomy. The horse and his rider he's cast into the sea. And the Lord has given us the victory. You know, I think it'll be that song. It might be something we've never yet seen. I don't know. But we've got what we've got, friends. We've got what we've got. And I want to convey that. You know, the hardness, the difficulty, some of the defeats. They're not final. We won't be finally defeated, but there are times when we're defeated. And it never takes God by surprise when his people are defeated. It doesn't stop the certainty of what lies ahead. Now, I want to look at Jacob, and I'll tell you why. One reason, we know for sure he will be in heaven. I go to Matthew chapter 8, page 954 and page 1351. Just to make my point that we know for sure Jacob's going to be in heaven, so it's worth looking at his journey. And there's this incredible commendation of a Roman centurion, a pagan, who has greater faith. He says, I've not found such faith in all Israel as I've found in this centurion. And it's a very interesting reason for it, which I have thought about a lot. Because all the man really says is, I know you can do this. Just say the word. Well, we can all, if we believe in God, we can all say that. God can do anything, can't he? But there's an element to what this Roman soldier has believed and expressed, which is better than anything Jesus has found among the Israelites. I'm in verse 10 of Matthew 8. Jesus heard it. I'll go back to it in a minute. He marvelled. Said to them that followed, Verily I say to you, I have not found so great faith, no, not in Israel. And I say that many shall come from the east and west and sit down with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We know he's going to be in heaven, in the kingdom of heaven. But the children of the kingdom shall be cast out into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. And what does this centurion express that so moved and impressed the Lord? And he says, please heal my servant, who is obviously paralysed and grievously tormented. I'm quoting from verse 6. And I'll come and heal him. No, don't come. I'm not worthy to have you under my roof. Just speak the word and it'll be done. And I'm a man, this is centurion, this Roman officer. I'm a man under authority, having soldiers under me. I say to this man, go, and he goeth. To another, come, and he cometh. To my servant, do this, and he doth it. Does it. And I said I'm so interested in Roman history, and some of those, one or two of those centurions were notorious for their cruelty to the soldiers. They used to carry a rod, and that was part of the symbol of office, but it was used, you know. He said one of them delight in making the guys' lives impossible. They daren't disobey, be crucified. So I have power to enforce my word among my men, says this Roman officer. And he has seen, I think this is the key, he has seen in the unseen world that all those spirits, maybe all the Roman gods, you don't know what his beliefs were, are all subject to this prophet from Nazareth. He's seen who this is, or at least the status, the spiritual status of Christ. He's seen it. Others were to see it, but not yet. It looks like he's ahead of the others. I've not found such great faith in all Israel. Now, Jacob's journey in Genesis 28, where there's so much we could say about Jacob. I'm not going to say a lot about him because we'd be here all morning, but he has that fantastic vision of they call it a ladder, it must have been a staircase, a ladder, a staircase. And he's on the run really from Esau, who intends to kill him. His mother said, you better go back and get a wife from the old country. That would be the reason. And then he says, I'm in verse 16, Jacob awaked out of his sleep. He said, surely the Lord is in this place, and I knew it not. And he was afraid and said, how dreadful is this place? This is none other but the house of God. This is the gate of heaven. Now, to bring that to us, God dwells in his people. You get a group of real Christians, built together on the foundation of Christ, the apostles, the prophets, a building fitly framed together for an habitation of God through the Spirit. And I think more time than not than so, but many times so, where I think some of those preachers, my goodness, when we were younger, you know, we went into the house of God and you knew God was there. You knew that when the guy opened his mouth, God was going to speak. Not very common, is it? But you knew, you know, God was in this place, and I knew it not. God was in this place. This is none other than the house of God. This is the gate of heaven. You know, the way to heaven is simple. Straight and narrow, but it is simple. It is in Christ, the Son of God. It's straightforward, friends. It's simple. And then the battles he goes through at Peniel, where he is transformed. You know, he's no longer Jacob, he's Israel. And he's all night long he's fought that great prayer battle. He's going to be murdered. There's no doubt. Esau's rushing towards him with an army of 400 men. What's he got? He's got his 4 wives. He's got probably his oldest son is probably about 19. A few Herb, they're going to be wiped out. And he's got to get through to God. And I've no doubt at all, friends, that the reason why we meet with impossible difficulties is just that. We've got to get through to God. That's why he allows those things, where there just isn't any alternative but to really take hold of the Lord. That's why God allows all that. And, you know, Peniel is transformed. But when he sees Pharaoh, you remember, and the cruelty they put him through, they sell Joseph, his favourite son, into slavery. They bring back Joseph's marvellous garment, the many-coloured coat, covered in, probably killed a kid or something, covered in blood. And they say, we don't know, do you recognise this? Is this, you know, some wild beast must have got him. They knew he was alive. Jacob was in sorrow, heartache for ages. None of them relieved him. And then Reuben, his oldest son, defiles one of his wives. Obviously not his mother, but one of Jacob's, was it Bilhah? One of the handmaids of Leah. And when he goes, then they get the famine, and Joseph has now gone through all that, and he's elevated. He's basically in charge of the world, is Joseph, from being a slave in the dungeon. Now, how God can move, friends, you know. You always think about Joseph when you think, my circumstances are never going to change. Be faithful to God anyway. Everything can change in a minute. But imagine if he'd not resisted Potiphar's wife. Say he'd fallen into that. We would never have heard of him, probably. His whole life would have been destroyed. He kept so faithful and true that when the time came, he was able to interpret the dream. And he rises to great power. God puts him there. And but what he says when they have to go from where they are into Egypt, Egypt's got the corn because Joseph has seen what's coming and is prepared for the famine that's coming. And they go into Egypt, where they're going to be greatly favoured and treated so well by the Pharaoh. And then he goes in to see Pharaoh. And I'm in chapter 47 of Genesis. And look at what he says. Pharaoh said to Jacob, "How old are you?" I often say that to old people, don't you? Well, how old are you? Jacob said to Pharaoh, "The days of the years of my pilgrimage are 130. And he lived another 17. He died at 147. And look at what he says. "Few and evil have the days of the years of my life been. Not attained unto the days of the years of the life of my fathers in their pilgrimage." And Jacob blessed Pharaoh and went out from before Pharaoh, because his father lived to be 180. His grandfather Abraham lived to be 175. He is 130. He died at 147. But his description of his life, he's had those meetings with God. This is none other than the house of God. This is the gate of heaven. And I've fought all night and God has changed me totally. I've been absolutely transformed. I'm not Jacob now, I'm Israel. Because with power, I've had power with man and with God. And I've got a new name. And all of those things are true of the Christian. We've met with God. We've found the place where God is. We've battled through. We've been given a new name by faith. We haven't earned it. We've been given by faith. A new name, a new nature, born again. But it's a difficult journey. This is what I'm trying to say to us, friends. The future couldn't be more glorious if your name's in the book of life. But it's a hard journey to get there. And it's going to get harder, I think. His description of his journey, "Few and evil have the days of the years of my life." I've had a short, hard, evil life. Jacob. And we mustn't let anything get in the way, friends, of our confidence in God. I will wind down actually, because my time's running out. But 2 Corinthians 4, verse 16. Then we'll go back, page 1150 and 1626, 2 Corinthians 4. And then we'll go back to Revelation. I'll find it in a minute. And you think what the Apostle Paul went through, my goodness. The times he was whipped after death, stoned, rejected, times of no food, no clothes, nowhere to sleep. And the worst of all, false brethren. I think that, to me, that is the worst of all. And the care of the churches. And he says, in verse 11, I'm in 2 Corinthians 4, "We which live are always delivered unto death for Jesus' sake, that the life also of Jesus might be made manifest in our mortal flesh." There's a reason why we go through these things, friend. It's so that what God is doing has no impediments, no obstructions. We have the same spirit of faith. So death works in us and life, but life in you. We have the same spirit of faith, according to as it is written, "I believed, therefore have I spoken. We also believe, and therefore speak." The quotation from the Old Testament which he could have added, I was greatly afflicted. As we read the original, I believe, therefore, if I spoken, I was greatly afflicted. All things are for your sakes, that the abundant grace might, through the thanksgiving of many, redound to the glory of God. For which cause we faint not, but though our outward man perish, yet the inward man is renewed day by day. For our light affliction, he calls it light affliction. It would have killed most people. Which is but for a moment, works for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory, while we look not at the things which are seen. Keep your eyes in the right place, but at the things which are not seen. The things which are seen are temporal. They're of this short life, and that's them done. But the things which are not seen are eternal. Now, you were designed to worship God. That's what you were made for. And it's simple. He made us, every man and woman made in the image of God. That's what God has done. And put within us a capacity to adore him and to worship him. And that's to be forever. All that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, that amazing, glorious fallen angel, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. If any man have ears to hear, let him hear. Thank you.